Welcome, everyone. This is the second of 4 webinars during May, during Mental Health Awareness Month, and the Keystone Contractors Association is excited to feature 4 excellent speakers this month. We had Kara McCaffrey from Hauk kick us off last week with a great program. Let's talk about mental health. We have that recording, and if you weren't with us last week, hopefully you can check it out on YouTube. But week number 2, we're going with the Construction Wellbeing Initiative presented by Sebastien de Ghellinck.
De Ghellinck. Yeah, that's Dutch. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but he's with SkillSignal. They have a fantastic app, and it's even better because of all the mental health resources on this safety app. So it's an amazing safety app, and it's even better because like I said, all these great resources, which Sebastian's going to talk about today. So without further ado, I will shut my camera off and let's all listen to Sebastien walk us through this program here. So looking forward to it. Thanks, Sebastien.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Yes, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to all of you today. I'm really excited. Let me share my screen. And so you should have this coming up, and let me put this in presentation mode. So if someone doesn't see this, let's set no, and set if you can just interrupt me if there is any issues, any technical issues.
Okay, we'll do. And then also, everyone, if you have a question, you can place that into the chat, and there'll be question and answer Q&A at the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth. So very excited to present to you the Construction Wellbeing Initiative today. I think Kara last week really set the right tone to the entire well-being and mental health conversation. So I'm very excited to basically presenting to you between Kara last week and then Chris Lalevie, who is absolutely spectacular, next week. So again, very, very happy to be with you today. A little bit about me right now. So my story is really one that revolves around construction, systems, and people. I'm sitting in New Jersey, but you can probably hear I'm still working on my New Jersey accent, but I grew up in Belgium. So, and my family over there is in real estate and construction. So really spend my entire childhood on construction sites, or always at arm's length of a construction site, which is something that absolutely fascinates me since I can even remember. And what I did was I started my professional career building systems. I'm also really fascinated by technology and infrastructure and computers. So I kind of did that for about 17 years, working at Citigroup, AIG, MasterCard in different locations. And my family and I came to the United States in 2009. That's when we arrived. We lived in the Midwest for a while, in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, and then went to New York City, and then now since 2018 in New Jersey. And since my family and I arrived in New Jersey, I kind of left the big companies. That DNA that I have in me that's connected to construction was really too loud, and I just wanted to go back. But at the same time, I was now also able to build systems really well. So that was the whole thing. I was going to build a system for construction. So that was the inception of SkillSignal. And so SkillSignal is a system that, or it's a company now, that I'm the CEO and I'm the owner of the company. And we are focused on safety, compliance, and risk control for construction job sites. Check it out if you have a second. The website is skillsignal.com. And we actually do have a lot of clients in Pennsylvania, all around the state. but I just also wanted to go back to my roots, because I think they're really important in what I try to be and what I try to do for the industry. So my grandfather, Maurice, and that's him, he was, after the Second World War, Belgium was much destroyed during the war. And so he was with the National Electricity Company. Now, just for context, Belgium is about as big as the state of Connecticut. So that put things in a background. And so he was part actually of the management team of the National Electric Company, and so he was essentially responsible for rebuilding the grid that had been mainly destroyed during the war. And what he did when they started that huge program of rebuilding the entire system and the entire infrastructure over several years is that he spearheaded the first ever PPE program at the company. And now my memories of my grandfather are of this very soft-spoken, very kind, extremely kind person. And he passed, unfortunately, when I was about 9-10 years old. And but I have this memory of him being this kind, thoughtful person. And but then I heard that actually when it was when the matters of safety and making sure that everyone was going home in good health, he became fierce. He was a lion. So he really fought to get that PPE program at the company. And so I hope that I have that passion in my blood as well. I like to believe that I do, but it's really coming from him. So, and since there is a lot of safety people in the room, let's make Maurice just a little safer on his beautiful motorcycle there. So let's talk about, and Cara touched upon this in the best way last week. She was talking about the problem in construction, and really opening that conversation. And in case you were not there last week, I think one of the most tragic numbers that we can look at in construction is, when you compare, there is about 1,000 people that are losing their life in construction because of accidents, physical accidents, electrocutions, accidents. Falls is another one, obviously. But then when you compare that, the CDC has estimated that about 5,000 people, that's 5 times more people in construction, lose their life to suicide. And this is just an absolute tragic number, and we all need to do something about it. It's too big to comprehend, but at the same time, this is also every one of that person is a father, a mother, a sister, a brother. So we just need to do something about it. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on the problem itself because Cara did it really, really well last week. But again, when we're looking at construction, there are just a lot of, it's a crisis. It's a mental health crisis. That there is just, we need to open that conversation, and we need to really face the facts. And if that's not enough, you should really care, because over the next 10 years, the problem in construction will not be about money mostly. There's going to be a lot of money that will be pouring into construction. These are numbers that have been provided by McKinsey, the consulting company. And when you look at just what the federal government is planning to spend on infrastructure, that's the Build Back Better bill that came, that was voted last year, or actually now a couple of years ago, sorry. There is also the CHIPS Act, which is reshoring some of that very strategic chip manufacturing back to the United States. And there is also a whole bunch of projects that are included in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was actually voted last year. So again, the problem in construction will most likely not be the money, but it will be the amount of people that can actually do the work. And I was recently talking to an infrastructure company. They're based out of Pennsylvania, and they were really expecting last year, 2023, to be an historic banner year for their company. The highest revenues they had. So they had really, really high expectations because, again, there is just a lot of money that's pouring into the industry right now, and especially if you're in infrastructure. And they had, at the end of the year, at the end of 2023, they were disappointed not because, again, they hadn't enough projects to work on, but they weren't able to find enough people to work. So they had to forego some of that revenue just because they didn't have people. So in other words, the people are going to be 100% critical over the next several years, because we're going to need to make sure that people in construction will be taken care of, because otherwise we won't be able to do everything that needs to be done. And so that means that we need to make sure that young people are coming into construction, because there is a whole generation that's leaving construction now and will be leaving construction. Yeah, will be leaving construction in the next few years. And what we see right now is that young people, there is a record low interest of the younger generation to get into construction, just because they've seen, usually when a lot of them are coming from families where at least one person, an uncle, a father, a mother, a parent is in construction, and they've seen the toll that construction is taking on that person. And so again, the younger generation is turning away from construction, and that's going to become an increasingly large problem. So again, the problem will be people. So keeping people, attracting people into the industry is going to be absolutely essential. So how do we go from here? Because if we go back to the mental health crisis, we also know that the subject is extremely overwhelming. And I'm gonna give Chris Lalevy a lot of credit here. He's essentially one of the people that really sort of made me realize that that this was a problem in construction. So this was me about 3 years ago. I think it was just before, actually right after COVID. It was probably one of the first in-person meetings I had after COVID. And this was an association, an industry association, about 200 people in the room in New Jersey. And we were sitting at tables, and Chris comes on the podium. And he starts talking about the mental health crisis, and especially also suicide, the suicide problem we have in the industry. And the room became silent. These were 200 people, became absolutely silent. And when Chris was done, about 25 minutes later, and when he left the podium, it continued to be silent. And everybody just felt extremely overwhelmed. And when people started talking again, they were saying, like, this is a huge problem. I mean, what can I do in the face of so much tragedy and so much sadness and heartbreak? What can I do today? What can I, I'm just an HR person. I'm just a superintendent. I'm just an owner of a company. What can I start doing to really address this problem? I'm not an expert. I don't even know where to start. I have limited resources or limited budget that I can spend on well-being or mental health support. How do I know that if I start doing something, it's actually going to produce the results that I want, or that it should produce? So these were all types of questions that people were asking. And so the discussion we started having at the table was, what if we could have a place where we can find solutions, proven solutions that people have done, that people have applied on their job sites in the field, and that have produced meaningful positive results. What if instead of having to reinvent the wheel and find a starting point that you're unsure about and you don't even know if it's going to produce the right results, how to be able to find something that has produced positive results in the past. So that became my mission. And again, I was starting my company SkillSignal. So, but this was just it was just I was too passionate about this that I couldn't I had to do something. So so we started looking at some universities because we wanted to have a platform where this could be looked at in a systematic way. So was lucky, found a professor at Princeton out of the Center of Behavioral Sciences, which is exactly what we needed. And she opened her door, and she was open to have that debate with us. And so we created what we then called the Construction Wellbeing Initiative. And so what we did over 2 years, essentially, with Princeton is that we created that platform. We invited a whole bunch of industry professionals from all of the different functions that we have in constructions, company owners to foremen, superintendents, risk managers, HR. We had safety and compliance, obviously, a lot of them, because that's something they're usually looking into. And we had 2 events live, and we had 2 events on Zoom. And so we had that huge, or that group that was actually becoming bigger and bigger, really coming together to have an open conversation. And once we had that platform, we could start tapping into the collective intelligence. And that's something that's wonderful. I mean, when you can do something like that, when you can put those brains together and you can start getting people to think together about a certain problem and think about the problem, or not so much about the problem, or actually getting the problem down and then start shifting their collective intelligence around the solutions. And that's exactly what we were doing over at Princeton. So really that was the whole story that was behind the Construction Wellbeing Initiative. And so you'll ask me, okay, so what are what has it produced and how can I use it? So this is exactly what we've produced. So it's a website, because that's how we do it today. And the website is called wellbeing.construction. I actually have it open. So let me just open it. That's Twitter, doesn't matter. So this is the website. So it's wellbeing.construction, no .com or .org or .net or anything, just wellbeing.construction. And so you're going to land on this website, which is separate from everything else. It's a completely free resource. We're not going to ask you your name, your email, your phone number. We're not going to call you. We're not going to try to sell you anything. This is completely free resource. And what you will find are we're going to put some additional resources soon, toolbox talks, and because we've collected them from several organizations. But for now, you can also look into the well-being interventions. And this is the database that we put together with the help of Princeton of all these interventions that we collected. So throughout those meetings, those events we had at Princeton, but also across hundreds of conversations that we had over the phone, over Zoom, in person, with construction professionals about what did you do or what have you seen on your job site that has produced a positive result supporting mental health of the workers. And that was every time, that was a single question we were asking. And if people had seen something or had experimented or had done something successfully, well, then you'll find it on this database. It was very important because we know that some people have budget, some people have time, but most of us, unfortunately, it's hard to get budget. It's hard to pinpoint resources. I mean, if you can, please do. But this is also going to let you find the interventions, the ideas that you can do for no or nearly no budget, and you can do quickly. And I'm going to spend some meaningful time giving you some of the examples. But again, as a resource, please visit this website. So it's wellbeing.construction, where you will find the database of all those interventions. And there is about 110 right now. So it's still growing, because now it's kind of, it's a little bit of a snowball effect where more and more people know about it. So now people are coming to us directly, and they want to let us know that they did something and it's worked. It's worked on their job sites. It's produced a positive effect. So again, please take a look at the wellbeing.construction job site. Let me go back to my presentation. Let me take a quick check on the chat to see if they are set. Are there any questions? I see question. What, according to you, need to do for effective construction and development, social and economic well-being of workers in poor and low socioeconomic countries? Is your initiative have clear response to these questions? Well, we're not really looking into the social economic aspects of the workers, but more around their mental health support. And when they're on your job, when they're working for you in any capacity, that you can support their mental health. Because again, you want to do that to keep your workforce happy, because again, the workforce is going to become scarce, more and more scarce, as we showed before. And the second thing also is that you want to do it because it avoids accidents. There is a lot of statistics showing that when people are running around job sites with a whole bunch of things on their minds, the rates of accidents and incidents will go sky high. If people are being taken care of, they feel respected, that rate of incidents and accident is going to go down very quickly. So unfortunately, I won't be able to give you too much information about that. Let's see. Okay, so I see that was the only question for now. Okay, so let's go back to the, yes, Seth?
I see another one here from Dallas. He would love to hear more about the efforts to eliminate stigma in the workplace.
Yeah.
Inviting the workers to share their mental health story.
Yep, 100%. So, and that I'm going to talk about that in a second. So again, just wanted to point out that because really the rest of the presentation will actually be diving deeper into some of the examples that I think are the some of things that you can start doing on any job site right now, and with a very limited amount of budget or resources. So, but I wanted to show you that you can go to wellbeing.construction, take some time, go through that database, because it's really something that we would love for people to pick up and take a look at. And again, we're not tracking anything. We're not asking for anything. The only thing that we would ask is if you have some stories of yourself, some things that you have done, and again, they've produced some interesting results, positive results, let us know, because we'd love to have that on the website. Again, it's all about that collective intelligence and really pushing anything that people can use again to make those construction sites better for the people that are working on them. So again, the rest of my presentation, I wanted to give you and go through some of the examples that we received, and you'll see. I mean, it's just incredible, the stories sometimes that you have behind them. I'll start with the second one, the construction mates. So this was a conversation I had with a British general superintendent. But before going into construction and becoming a general superintendent, he was a combat diver in the British Navy for, I believe, 2 decades. And so he retired from the Army or from the Navy, and went on to become a general superintendent in construction. He works for a very, very large British construction company. And I don't know if anyone that's listening in right now has done scuba diving before, but essentially scuba diving, there is one rule that everyone always looks at is it's a buddy system. You're always with one other people, and you're always looking at it, or you're always kind of communicating with each other, so that if anything happens, you have each other's back. So that buddy systems in scuba diving is that's an absolute rule. And I used to scuba dive a long time ago, and I developed some amazing friendships, because you basically put your safety in the hands of someone else while you're down there. And so that's what he had done for about 20 years, being a combat diver. He was always with a buddy, and when he came to construction, he wanted to introduce that. So he started buddying up. He started making connections between people and saying, like, look, you guys are going to work together, and you guys are going to work together. And essentially he said, at first I was doing it very randomly, but then at some point you start developing a little bit of a sixth sense, and who is mostly going to work out for the best. So but he said the most beautiful thing happened is people were starting to, you created a connection with someone, a special connection with someone on the job site. So now those two people started talking together. They greeted each other in the morning, and he was telling me, like, I wouldn't necessarily give them a lot of time to develop that relationship. I would give them like a lunch or two, and maybe like a the opportunity to get some coffee together or something like that. But it was really, and he said the most amazing thing is that it would happen very fast. When you can create that connection, it happens very fast. And people would be talking about their kids, would be talking about their, what they had done during the weekend, but you created that connection. And the next thing that you see when you create a connection, when you have somebody that you're specially connected to on the job site, is that person is now starting to, watch over you. It's just going to be, that's just going to how it's going to be, because you create that connection. So this is a very interesting one. And really, I mean, there is nothing that would prevent you to start experimenting. Just, buddy up your foremen, buddy up your superintendents, buddy up some people from different trades. But this is really an amazing story. Another one that I really like is this one: your first name is the sweetest sound. So this was a conversation we had with a company, a US company, a GC, pretty large, and they do a lot of healthcare. So they were essential. So they were those companies that continued building during COVID. They never really stopped. But what was happening is that at the height of COVID, they really had a lot of stress on their job sites. They had a few near misses. I believe they even had a couple of accidents, because people were just out of their mind with stress, and they needed to continue building, because they were building hospitals and health centers. But at the same time, news was extremely stressful. You had your family at home. You didn't know if you were catching COVID. I mean, just remember how it was, in March and April of 2020. So they started thinking, like, we need to do something to just, open the conversation, for one, and also make sure that we can reduce some of that stress. So, and at the same time, again, they didn't really have resources carved out for this. So they started brainstorming and doing experiments. And then this is the thing that happened. During their orientations, their site safety orientations or new employee orientations, they would give people white stickers, and they would ask people to just write their first name on that sticker and then put it on the hard hat. And then they have one rule, and they're still applying it today on all of their job sites, is that everyone talks to each other using a first name or a preferred name. the name that's on that sticker. And so again, super simple. You basically just need to go to Staples, get a bunch of white stickers. You need to be consistent. Again, there is no, hey, plumber guy, hey, interstate guy, whatever. Everyone gets addressed by their first name. And when they explained this story to us, they said, from in 2 weeks' time, we saw that people felt more respected. The stress was cut down. People felt like they were being considered. So this is another one. Nothing prevents you to start doing this right now. Tomorrow, today, this afternoon on your job sites. Just put that first name on a hard hat, and as a consistent rule, have everyone use people's first names. Chris again, and this is a simple one. I mean, he has this whole "Are you okay?" listening program, and I think that this is addressing the question that Seth was highlighting from the chat. Opening the dialogue. Right, opening the dialogue on a construction job site and talking about mental health, and basically also, I think he was the person who was asking the question, the stigma around mental health. It's just opening the conversation. Are you okay? If you have the ability to walk around your job site, and I really believe, and we've seen. We actually have several of our clients, SkillSignal clients, and also in my network, we have several people that are now doing this. They're walking the job and making time to ask people if they're okay. And they're doing it in a genuine way. They're stopping, they're looking people in the eye, they are asking the question. Some of them even go as far as having people of their companies go to mental health first aid support. And I think Kara mentioned it last week. This is a wonderful program. I mean, it's something that's also becoming more and more, I think, popular, and it's really enabling you to have those conversations and detect some of that stigma and some of those behaviors that may be red flags or yellow flags. So asking people if they're okay. If you do that, then if you as a manager, as a safety manager, as an owner, as an HR manager, if you're doing that, you're basically leading by example. And if you do it, then it means that this is a question that can be asked, right? Then it becomes, because if you're an owner of a company and you're asking people if they're okay, then it means that question is actually something that can be asked on the job. So this is a really, really important one. Simple one, but very important one. But and we're capable of we're genuine people in construction, I believe. So I think this is an important one, and also makes a lot of sense. You can also, and we have several people that have highlighted that they're working with associations and nonprofits. You have nonprofits that are doing kidney screenings, that are doing diabetes screenings, that are doing blood and blood pressure screenings, and usually they have trailers, or they have trucks that they can bring anywhere, and they can be there during a lunch break, and they can do this for free. So it's not going to cost you much. And at the same time, this is something that, again, shows that you care. It's probably even important because who knows, somebody may be detected with like an early, problem with, high blood pressure or something. So they may start doing something about it. So this is another one that we have seen now that's becoming more and more popular, just working with those nonprofits and those associations, because they will make it very simple. They will come to the job site and they will see anyone. I wanted to go back to the first one, the jet fighter pilot hack. And this is primarily, I think, one that's really amazing for anyone who has a supervisor role. superintendents, foremen, safety managers, project managers. I mean, we know that we deal with an enormous amount of stress, right? Construction is stressful. We know that. Everyone knows that. So dealing with stress. This is a story that I heard from a jet fighter pilot. So he was essentially telling that when they're flying at Mach 2 and they suddenly have a master caution or master alarm or whatever it is that's going on in their cockpit, the worst thing that they can do at that time is to do something intuitively, because that's usually the bad decision. I was presenting this to another group last week, and in the room there was someone who for 10 years worked with the Coast Guard, and he was a helicopter technician. So he was flying in those helicopters, and if anything would happen, he was a technician on board who could, look at what was going on and potentially, do whatever was needed to make sure that the helicopter would be safe. And he was saying, like, yeah, I mean, if you take the wrong decision, if you activate those engine, what's it called? If you're going to shut down your engines, or you're going to extinguish your engines because you think that there is fire in your engines, that's it. You won't be able to put them back on. So you only have one shot. Same thing with that jet fighter. I suppose if you eject out of your cockpit, that's it. There is no way back there. So again, what this pilot told us was, when in their training, in their since they start, what they're being drilled is that whenever they have something that's going on, and especially when it's a master alarm or something that they know needs immediate attention, they are drilled to, at that moment, stop everything they do, breathe, and then everyone needs to develop like a little hack. And he was saying, for me, it was looking at the time. I would actually look at my watch, and then take a second to kind of store the time that was on my watch. Other people, it would be like, I would look at, two of my gauges, and I would read them aloud. But this is essentially, and this is just a hack for your brain to go into thinking mode, right? You have, and I'm sure that most people, that everyone knows this, but you have, when you look at your day, your work day, there is, when you need to make a decision, you can make a decision very quickly, right? Based on your gut feel and intuition, right? These are, and you don't even need to think. This is based on some experience and gut feel, and you can make those decisions immediately. These decisions are coming from your brain stem. They essentially are very short wired, and they don't need to go into thinking. And then there are the decisions where you actually need to stop. You need to start looking at the blueprints, or you need to start having conversations with people, and you need to start thinking about what's going to be the best decision you can make in that moment to resolve that problem. So it's going to be very important that when you are confronted with some particular stress at work, instead of giving an immediate reaction or an immediate decision, you take a second, you stop, you breathe, find out what's working for you, take a sip of water, look at your watch. But that's going to ensure that you are going to be in your cortex brain. That's the part of the brain that can think and that can analyze. And it's going to take a little longer, but it can do the work. And so again, I found this very, very interesting, because that's what fighter pilots are doing in the moments where they get, those stresses where they only have one shot. And I've actually, since I heard this story, I'm a parent to 4 children, 6 to 15 years old. So I started doing this myself too. When I feel overwhelmed and I have my kids coming to me with 1,000 questions or whatever it is that's happening, instead of, going into an immediate reaction, I kind of stop, breathe, and, just put my thinking brain on. So this has helped me tremendously. So I would really challenge you in your functions that whenever that happens, just stop, breathe, and make sure that you feel like you're going to be in the part of your brain that can actually address what's going on. Said I want to take a break and see if there is more questions. I can continue talking about this for a long time, but yeah, let's see. Any questions? Seth? Yeah.
It looks like Shmuel, he has something in here saying, according to you, does direct intervention of government for ensuring improvement of well-being of workers in different workplaces, do you need direct intervention from the government in workplaces?
Yeah. So again, I think this is a little further of this is basically policy and public health. I would imagine that this is the well-being initiative is really more about what we can do in the industry on our job sites to make them better. That being said, yeah, I mean, government has a huge role to play when it comes to putting out, health policies and mental health policies, and we're seeing it. We're actually seeing it, and I believe that that's going to be some of what Chris will talk about next week. We're seeing with substance abuse, right? The government is trying to do some work on that, and as usual, government, whatever they do, there is always good things and bad things about it, and I don't want to do politics on this call, but I think it's they definitely have a huge role to play, and they need to do what they're supposed to do, which again is public health policies and through OSHA or the Department of Labor, through the right channels. I believe, and that's my belief, is that in this country, I think there is already a lot of those policies in place. So again, with the initiative, we were more about trying to see what we, as the industry, as the people that are in the field, that are with the workers, that are in some cases, not well, what we can do on our job sites to make them better and to create that support directly on the job site. So again, I'm sorry that I'm probably not exactly talking about the government and what the government can do. Other questions? I would like to ask if anyone on the call has encountered or has maybe experimented or done something on their job sites. Is their company involved in some mental health support on their job sites, and what if they would like to share the results, what you've seen? So just unmute yourself if you want to, and if you want to share.
Well, this is Seth again. I have heard that a lot of companies that are members of our organization or association, they make a point to put nameplates on everyone's helmets That way, instead of saying, hey, you can actually call someone by their name. And that makes a big difference when you're working with different people all the time.
Yeah. That's we were talking about that one. That's one that I think, you know, it should be something that everyone does. It's such an easy one to put in place, and it just makes so much sense. I think another one that I really liked is, you know, explain and sign the work. I think we and hopefully people will also, you know, think the same. I think we don't spend enough time talking to worker and explaining to the workers that are on the jobs what it is that they're building. You know, the project may be a hospital, could be a school, it could be a research lab, it could be a military facility, it could be one of those chip plants that they're building now across the country. And those things have an impact on society. They have an impact on what society will look like. And so I think it just makes sense during the safety orientation, take a minute to explain to people how what you're building is going to make an impact for the local community, for society at large, especially if it's healthcare, if it's education, because it has. And so I think that's an important one. People like to know that they're doing something that's meaningful, that will carry their work into something bigger than they are. So explaining the project. And then I even saw a couple of examples where the superintendents would find a place on the job, you know, usually like a pillar or something like that. They would put some white paint, and then they would actually have people, you know, every worker that was on the job would sign on that place, that dedicated place. And again, it's, you know, you put your name on something that you've collaborated to, that you've built, that you've put your work into. And obviously, I mean, afterwards they would put, you know, whatever cover of, you know, paint or something else, so those signatures wouldn't continue to be visible. But that doesn't really matter. I mean, the signature is there. And so I find that very fascinating, that because that works through, again, you know, your sense of doing something that's bigger than you. It's the sense of purpose, is that your work is actually serving the community. It's serving a purpose and something that's important. So again, something very, very simple, but just so impactful.
Yeah, another one I heard from one of our members that worked really well is, you know, normally you think of construction workers, they go to lunch and they sit on their helmet or on their cooler and eat. And instead, they brought in folding tables and chairs so everyone can sit together, and made them come together and talk with each other instead of having little groups of people sitting on their coolers.
Yeah.
They sat down like a normal person and talked at a table. Back when you had a family, that's what you did.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another one. I mean, we have it on the page here: install tables and chairs and see what happens. And the most interesting thing happened when we had the story come from a GC, actually, also from the Southwest. And they would install tables, chairs, and umbrellas as well, because this is the Southwest, so they needed to have shade. And what they saw is that people would actually, there would be like a whole energy that would build up around this. So, as you said, people would, you know, start to sit down together, have lunch with each other. And there is always people that want to sit by themselves, look at their phones, and that's fine. We're all different. But for the people that wanted to sit with other people and, you know, talk and connect, they could do that. And then what happens when you have sort of a place where you have chairs and a table, the next thing that they saw was, well, now the guys who were coming in with a newspaper, instead of in the morning, instead of throwing in the garbage, they would, leave it on the table. And then, people would be able to read the newspaper. And then people, sometimes a foreman would bring donuts or a bag of apples or hot coffee or iced tea, homemade iced tea, and would put it on the table as well. And now people had, and so it was very interesting. I think the most interesting part of the story was when you start creating that space on your job site, it actually creates like a whole energy around it, which you didn't have necessarily before because it couldn't express itself. So hopefully that makes sense too.
I did see one thing in the chat where Rachel, she was mentioning some of her success stories with a safety week carnival and talking about well-being and doing meditation Mondays and stretching, flexing, doing teamwork, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean the stretch and flex. It's in the. You'll find it in the repository in the database as well. It's a classic. Stretch and flex works. I believe I saw recently that over a career, a construction worker has 50 or 60% chance to get injured, or has a 50-60% chance to get an ailment to one of his tendons or to an articulation or something like that. So it just makes sense. So for the body, and then also it's a moment where everybody will be together. So again, creating that connection for a few minutes is the stretch and flex is definitely something that's a classic, and it should be, because it can only create positive impact as well. And thank you very much for sharing it, Rachel. This is great. I mean, the carnival, that's really that's another great way for you to cut through the stigma and open the conversation and show that the conversation is something that you can have at your job sites, throughout your company, that this is a subject that can be talked about. And that's all it is. Once you start talking about it, and once you show that people can talk about it, it's most likely it's going to open people's minds, and they'll see that they can actually do something about it. I think Kara also mentioned last week employee assistance programs, EAPs. These are huge, and more those EAPs have mental health support items. So make sure, and she mentioned it, but I want to mention it again. If you have access to an EAP through your company or through whatever organization you happen to be affiliated with, union or whatever, look into the EAP, because it most likely than not, it will have some mental health support items that will be dedicated. So take a look at that as well, for sure.
And we have a couple minutes left, and I just want to make sure everyone knows that in the chat, Dallas, she just put a link on there about a resource that's helpful that they developed with Great Lakes Bay.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. So again, encouraging you to go to wellbeing.construction. That's the website. That's where you'll find those 100+ interventions. And again, these are all interventions that have that we've collected from the construction community, and that have worked out for other people. So I'm sure that you can probably find one or two, if not more, that will be working for you as well. So please take a look, and if you want to contribute, if you want to share anything, please be in touch. Let me go back to the first page of my presentation, just so you have my contact details. They're right here on this page. at the top left there. So please be in touch if you want to share something.
Well, Sebastien, thank you again for sharing your expertise and your resources, and we really appreciate it on behalf of all the attendees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.